Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So you can see we're here in this beautiful autumnal setting. Where are we?
In Queen Mary's Rose Garden in Regent's Park.
It's the little island, you know, we always
in
have this
Queen
debate.
Mary's Rose, it is.
There ain't no roses around here.
Oh,
But yeah,
Dave.
anyways, it's a beautiful place. The waterfall's over there and the lake behind us, and
We also look autumnal, don't we?
kind of, yeah, because it's autumn time. So anyway, yeah, this beautiful book Srila Prabhupada did that when he was planning to go for an interfaith meeting, actually, gathering in Japan. What's that book called?
Light of the Bhagavat.
Light of the Bhagavat, yeah, that really talks about that kind of time in India, that season. Okay, so we're reading from the Bhagavatam. And,
Okay, it's Canto 3, Chapter 16, Text 11, Chapters Jaya and Vijaya cursed by the sages.
Okay, here we go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Alright, text 11. On the other hand, they captivate my heart, who are gladdened in heart, and who, their lotus faces enlightened by nectarian smiles, respect the Brahmanas, even though the Brahmanas utter harsh words. This is Lord Vishnu speaking. They look upon the Brahmanas as my own self, and pacify them by praising them in loving words, even as a son would appease an angry father, or as I am pacifying you.
Wow, interesting.
Purports. It has been observed in many instances in the Vedic scriptures that when the Brahmanas or Vaishnavas curse someone in an angry mood, the person who is cursed does not take it upon himself to treat the Brahmanas or Vaishnavas in the same way.
Big lesson to learn there.
Yeah. There are many examples of this. For instance, the sons of Kuvera, when cursed by the great sage Narada, did not seek revenge in the same harsh way, but submitted. Here also, when Jaya and Vijaya were cursed by the four Kumaras, they did not become harsh towards them, rather they submitted. That should be the way of treating Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. One may sometimes be faced with a grievous situation created by a Brahmana, but instead of meeting him with a similar mood, one should try to pacify him with a smiling face and mild treatment. Brahmanas and Vaishnavas should be accepted as earthly representatives of Narayan. Nowadays, some foolish persons have manufactured the term Daridra Narayan, indicating that the poor man should be accepted as the representative of Narayan. But in Vedic literature, we do not find that poor men should be treated as representatives of Narayan. Of course, those who are unprotected are mentioned here, but the definition of this phrase is clear from the Sastras. The poor man should not be unprotected, but the Brahmana should especially be treated as the representative of Narayan and should be worshipped like him. It is specifically said that to pacify the Brahmanas, one's face should be lotus-like. A lotus-like face is exhibited when one is adorned with love and affection. In this respect, the example of the fathers being angry at the son and the sons trying to pacify the father with smiling and sweet words is very appropriate. I'll read that bit again because we were interrupted by someone.
Sorry.
In this respect, the example of the fathers being angry at the son and the sons trying to pacify the father with smiling and sweet words is very appropriate.
So many realizations.
Yeah, like you said, it's a lot of lessons in tall order, because if you think you've been spoken to harshly, especially, well, whether you're in the wrong or right or not, it's most people wouldn't just, most people, some do, wouldn't be like, okay. Like, actually, that's interesting, because we were just walking here and I was just giving an example of the devotee who yesterday, anyway, it was another day, was very kind to someone who sometimes can speak harshly to them, and my personal instinct was, why? There's so many people in this room, why you gravitate towards that person? That's all, not saying, oh, go and be mean, but there are so many people here, and why would you gravitate towards someone who isn't very nice to you? But it's a certain character. It's very, I'd say, quite a strong character in one sense, that you can, almost like a duck. It's like you're very immune to. You can just be your own person, if that makes sense. It doesn't. Some people don't mean that they're weak, but I can be in that situation, and I can be the better person, and I don't lose anything. Just water off a duck's back, That's quite a strong character.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, and from a few years in ISKCON and visiting India and so many different things, that it's actually quite a natural quality for people coming from India.
Yes.
Not necessarily those who are, brought up or born in the West, but
Yeah.
but it's definitely a natural cultural thing to be able to be respectful, even in the face of, utter disrespect. Usually, it's not an absolute thing, but yeah, this is a very, very powerful lesson, and we just have to see Krishna working through them, and what's that? Ashishava Paravatam Pinoshtama Darshanam Marmahatam Karotavad, and whether you handle me roughly by your embrace or make me broken-hearted by not being present before me, you're completely free to do anything and everything, for you're always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So, like that. Should we carry on? Text 12. These servants of mine transgressed against you, not knowing the mind of their master. I shall therefore deem it a favor done to me if you order that although reaping the fruit of their transgression, means, even though they need to get punished, that they may return to my presence soon, and the time of their exile from my abode may expire before long. So this is the mood of the Lord. He's just like, no problem, they need to be chastised, they need to be corrected, but I'm asking you to do me a favor. Okay, this is God asking the Brahmins to do him a favor. I mean, this is quite, powerful. And what is that favor? That even though my servants didn't understand my mind and didn't serve me properly and transgressed against you and committed an offense, but please bring them back to me soon. Right? It's very powerful, very, very powerful. Purport. From this statement, we can understand how anxious the Lord is to get his servitor back into Vaikuntha. Therefore, this incident proves that those who have once entered a Vaikuntha planet can never fall down. Interesting. I always thought it proved just the opposite. The case of Jai and Vijay is not a fall down. It is just an accident. Okay, wow, powerful. So there's a distinction between a fall down and an accident. The Lord is always anxious to get such devotees back again to the Vaikuntha planets as soon as possible. It is to be assumed that there is no possibility of a misunderstanding between the Lord and the devotees. But when there are discrepancies or disruptions between one devotee and another, one has to suffer the consequences. Let's read that again. But when there are discrepancies or disruptions between one devotee and another, one has to suffer the consequences. Although that suffering is temporary. The Lord is so kind to his devotees that he took all the responsibility for the doorman's offense and requested the sages to give them facilities to return to Vaikuntha as soon as possible. And it's very, very powerful. So, let's see, it's quite a lot there. There's a distinction between an accident and a fall down. Seems that fall down would be something that was intentionally done to try to harm or hurt or something like that. Whereas one just kind of comes under the sway. Now, we would normally say under the sway of the modes of material nature, but in Vaikuntha, the modes of material nature are not present. So, what do they come under the sway of? The Lord's Leela Shakti. And if that's the case, then of course it's not a fall down, because it's all part of the Lord's Leela. Anyway, it's one of those achencha things. It's very difficult to understand. But, yeah, interesting. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a good one to use though, isn't it? If something occurs and you're like, someone tries to correct you at the authorities' temple, and you can say, no, it's just an accident, it's not a fall down.
Okay, so she's trying to see the other
it's
side.
It's part of the Lord's Leela.
Oh, God. Well, might have just, lit something on fire. That's part of the Lord's Leela.
You can't see it.
You can't see it, but I can.
That's not how you should think. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Alright, let's read on text 13.
Okay.
Brahma continued, even though the sages had been bitten by the serpent of anger, their souls were not satiated with hearing the Lord's lovely and illuminating speech, which was like a series of Vedic hymns. Text 14. The Lord's excellent speech was difficult to comprehend because of its momentous import and its most profound significance. The sages heard it with wide open ears and pondered it as well. But although hearing, they could not understand what he intended to do. Purport. It should be understood that no one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead in speaking. There is no difference between the Supreme Person and his speeches, for he stands on the absolute platform. The sages tried with wide open ears to understand the words from the lips of the Supreme Lord. But although his speech was very concise and meaningful, the sages could not completely comprehend what he was saying. They could not even comprehend the purport of the speech or what the Supreme Lord wanted to do, nor could they understand whether the Lord was angry or pleased with them.
Why is that?
I agree, because when you were reading the is it verse 12, where these servants of mine have transgressed, if please deem it a favor, like after they've done whatever they need to do, their time, come back to me. I found that quite, like, if I was on the receiving end of that, I'd be like, oh my God, he's actually annoyed with me. Like when someone comes and they say, look, please forgive this person. Oh, great one. Oh, if you think it's worthy, once they've done what they need to do, because you're so upset, and of course they need to be punished. If you don't mind, can they come back? Like, I read it like Vishnu was also chastising them subtly and indirectly, in that. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, exactly. That is the point.
And so therefore I understand that they're like, hold on a minute, the words are saying one thing, but we're not getting that. We're not getting that rasa.
Exactly. But the point being that it's not that the Lord also doesn't mean that. It's just that he's handling things in such a way that he's simultaneously apologizing for what his servants did, humbling himself as their master before the people he offended, and he's requesting for them to come back, but at the same time, because he's doing all this and he's the Supreme Lord, they can't help but see that the way that he's dealing with it is the way they should have dealt with it, and they didn't. So by example, what's that? Example is stronger than precept, or something like that. Is that the statement? Yeah. Which means he's setting such a powerful example that they're realizing, oh, we didn't do that. We should have acted like that. We should have also been forgiving. So even though he's not saying to them any chastising words, his example is teaching more powerfully than his words ever could. And that's having an impact. And therefore it's bewildering. Well, you're saying one thing, but what I'm feeling inside myself
because I do feel subtly he's pulling them up. if you see what I mean. Not just he's just giving an example, but they're getting pulled up like, oh, hold on a minute. Because he's come out and been so like you said, humble and down on the floor. It was not literally on the floor, but and you think, yeah, and here I am, I just curse these people. Was there really a need to, which as you all know, I don't believe there was the need to go that far. So yeah, I do. It's interesting because when you read it, I did feel that, and then I thought, no, he's not actually saying it in such a way that 100% humbly, oh my God, he's pulling, because he's the Lord, he's expert.
What you're saying is he's kind of speaking a little bit sarcastically.
I think subtly that he's pulling them out. Yes, I do. I read it like that. I read it like, if you don't mind, because he's the Lord, you have to understand his position. And then he's like, but if it's okay with you guys, if you don't mind, when the punishment that's meted out.
But he's also saying, this is how you're supposed to treat the Brahmins. This is how you're supposed to treat the Vaishnavas. The point is that Jai and Vijay are also
no, and he does
Vaishnavas.
that. But that's what I mean. He accepts. He's dealing with both sides so amazingly. That's my point. There
is a chastisement going on, but I think it's so super subtle.
Yeah.
I would say I don't think it's actually that he's being kind of sarcastic, like, oh, my dear Brahmins.
No, we're not in an American way, but there is a level of,
That's American way.
Yeah, not in a gross American way.
All right, we're going to read 15
Let's
now.
read on, please.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. So, translation. The 4 Brahmana sages were nevertheless...
What verse are we on, please?
15.
Okay, we have to let the viewers know.
Okay, we're on verse 15. The 4 Brahmin sages were nevertheless extremely delighted to behold him, and they experienced a thrill throughout their bodies. They then spoke as follows to the Lord, who had revealed the multi-glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his internal potency, Yoga Maya. Purport. The sages were almost too puzzled to speak before the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the first time, and the hairs of their bodies stood erect due to their extreme joy. Morning. The highest opulence in the material world is called paramestya, the opulence of Brahma. But what material opulence of Brahma, who lives on the topmost planet? But that material opulence of Brahma, who lives on the topmost planet within this material world, cannot compare to the opulence of the Supreme Lord, because the transcendental opulence in the spiritual world is caused by Yoga Maya, whereas the opulence in the material world is caused by Maha Maya. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so they're puzzled, they're amazed because the Lord is, kind of.
Yeah, but overall, what I got from this verse is that they're just overall in awe and thrilled that they're in the presence of the Lord, who they came to see anyway. And here he is talking to them, so you're like, whoa, so much emotions are going on.
Yeah, and that's there for sure. I agree 100%. I guess it's just trying to unpack Srila Prabhupada's purport. He says the highest opulence in the material world is called paramestya. But when you look at the word for word, paramestya is of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he says the opulence of Brahma, which seems strange. But that material opulence of Brahma, who lives on the topmost planet in the material, cannot compare to the opulence of the Supreme Lord. Yes, that makes sense. Because the opulence of Brahma, who is the highest living entity in the material world, is still under the control of Mahamaya. Whereas Krishna, his opulence is coming from Yoga Maya. And that makes sense. So it's only that one little part that kind of confuses me a little bit. Paramestya, the opulence of Brahma, whereas in the translation it says the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. Unless the thing is, it should be the opulence of Brahman, or something like that. But even that would be under Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. anyway, let's carry on.
Alright, the final one. Text 16. The sages said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are unable to know what you intend for us to do. For even though you are the supreme ruler of all, you speak in our favour as if we had done something good for you. Purport. The sages could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is above everyone, was speaking as if he were in the wrong. Therefore, it was difficult for them to understand the words of the Lord. They could understand, however, that the Lord was speaking in such a humble way just to show them his all-merciful favour.
Yeah, exactly. So he was...
Yeah, well, like you said, expertly dealing with all sides. I mean, if you think about it, they went there to go and see him, and this isn't how they wanted to see him, where he has to come to his front door, as opposed to going to see someone and, you know, you'd enter and they'd be in their parlour, front room, whatever, sitting on the sofa, whatever. Not that he comes to the front door like, what's going on? My receptionist, you've upset them. What's going on? You're getting them sacked. Just in layman's terms, you know. It's not that how you go and see someone, is it?
Anyway, powerful pastimes, many great lessons. So it's always good to read the Bhagavatam, but not just to read, but to really try to deeply understand, and even go more than that is to try to imbibe the teachings and implement them in our lives. So there's a lot to work on, really, at least for me.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.